Welcome to the Pet Loss Companion. I'm Dolan-Del Vecchio, and I'm here with my friend and colleague and co-author, Nancy Saxton-Lopez. And this is a broadcast that we do live every Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. It's an opportunity for us to bring some of the experience and knowledge and wisdom that we gained from facilitating pet loss groups for a very long time. In Nancy's case, more than 30 years, when we were in New Jersey together, and we compiled that learning into a book called The Pet Loss Companion: Healing Advice from Family Therapists Who Lead Pet Loss Groups. And now we have the opportunity to talk with you and to share some stories and recommendations and thoughts. And we do encourage you to talk with us. And you can reach us by sending us an email. You can reach me at kenddv@gmail.com. And you can reach Nancy at nsaxtonlopez, that's nsaxtonlopez at csmpc.com. And if you write to us and give us a story from your experience
Feelings,
or a
stories.
recommendation, whatever you want to share with us, if you do share a story, we'd like for you to just tell us, is it okay to share here as well? Is it okay to share with our audience here? Because it can be just so very helpful for our people to hear what others are going through and how they're getting through their loss, or how they're getting through the preparation for a loss. So please let us know if it's okay for us to share.
Of course.
We also want you to know that the program is a friend of Dakin Humane Society. Dakin Humane Society is in Springfield, Massachusetts. It's a 501c3 community-supported animal welfare organization. It provides a range of services, including shelter and medical care and spay-neuter services and behavioral rehab for more than 20,000 animals and people each year. Since it opened in 1969, Dakin has become one of the most recognized nonprofit organizations in Central Mass and a national leader in animal welfare. And you can learn more about Dakin and make a donation at dakinhumane.org. That's DAKINHUMANE.org. You can also make a donation in support of our program by clicking the link that appears in the description of our program. And I also just want to let you know that next week we won't be doing a new broadcast because I have got to have minor surgery. So I'm going to be having surgery.
I'm going to be his nurse.
That
day.
Nancy will be helping me heal. and we'll be back the following week. So I think that's it, Nancy. Do you want to take us away from there?
You know, we've had some folks who over the last few weeks have written to us, but there's been a lot, so we really haven't gotten to all of the stories that we'd like to share with you. So we're going to do some of them tonight. And I really have found that Julie's story really hit home in a lot of different ways, but it had a very interesting positive. It was almost like Melissa with the rabbits, right? So there was a kind of a positive spin at the end of that. So I've got Julie's email here. I'm not going to read it word for word, but you know, we can talk about it because this has to do with multiple losses and some elderly losses. So
that's the thing, right? You get these kittens or puppies, you get them together because you want them to be friends, and then many years later they're very elderly together, and you're facing a series of losses, right?
Well, that's what when Rosie and Jack had their puppies, and the first it was quite chaotic because there were 5 of them, but I'm like, what's going to happen in 15 and 14, 15, 16 years, because they're all about the same age. So the 5 puppies and Rosie and Jack are all about the same age. And of course, I had said last week that Gracie had died. So, and the only one left now is Rocky and our Jackie, who is going to be 16 in April. So we're hoping for the best, that he will make it further. But that you do think about that, even though you're in the midst of all of this joy and fun and there's a lot of work, but the housebreaking and all that, but you're thinking, oh my God, what's it going to be like so many years down the road?
Hmm. Hmm.
So Julie started. She had multiple losses, in her life, and she said, which is interesting, each new loss is different and under different circumstances.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
And we all know that one loss brings back all the other ones.
Yeah.
So her beloved eldest cat, who was Des, I believe, was 15, and he was declining. So she had noticed some signs. She lives in an area, and this is another big issue for people. She lived in an area where the veterinarians weren't close. So I'm not sure if it was somewhat rural, but it would take her 40 minutes or so. I think she said 35 to 40-minute drive just to get to the vet. That's not the ER vet. That's just her vet.
I just saw an article today that there is a lack of veterinarians
Oh,
in the
yes, there is a
country.
lack of veterinarians and veterinary techs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and which is what they go through. And we can have a whole, program on that, because when I working at Blue Pearl, I saw it. I mean, I have
Mhm.
a veterinarian now that I work with, and you see what they go through. So she had known some signs, and there was going to be a snowstorm. So she didn't really want to take. She was scared about COVID. She was scared about the snowstorm.
Mhm.
Should I take him? Um,
Mhm.
but she did get there, and she said she had to wait, right? So it was because now at that time, veterinarians were not letting people in.
Yep.
They were coming to the curb, taking the pet and going in, and then you didn't know what was going on, and it could be quite a wait, right?
Yeah.
Um, so she was stressed with that. She thought her cat had congestive heart failure because his breathing was labored. And she spoke with the vet on Friday, and the office was still closed. Okay, so this was around a snowstorm. And so they said, well, maybe you should go to the ER. All right. So the ER was 40 minutes away. So maybe I'm getting this a little, but that was 40 minutes away, and the weather was still not great. So she waited a few days, and then went to her. I'm sorry, she went to her normal office, and that was only 5 minutes away. But the cat, he wasn't able to sleep or eat well.
Mhm.
He was eating very little. He had an okay morning on that Saturday. And she had this feeling that he was taking one last look as he came out into the living room. For some reason, that was her feeling. So she did go to the ER. She had to wait a little while, because that's an ER, so that would be a wait. And he was diagnosed with severe congestive heart failure. So no, she went to her vets. Then she went, and he was at that point diagnosed with severe congestive heart failure. And then the option was to take him to an ER for treatment in an oxygen tent over the
Yeah.
weekend, or to euthanize.
Yeah.
And she said, I would do anything for this cat. He was a cat that I got with my husband, who passed away in 2013.
In
And
2013. Okay.
that's a real connection for people.
Sure.
We had that in the group a lot, which
Mhm.
was so painful to let go of that animal that was special to their spouse.
Sure. It symbolizes the relationship with the spouse, right? I mean, it
Yeah.
carries that memory in a ritual sort of way, and the cat and you knew that time together, that time
Yeah.
when her husband was part of the family. It's a very powerful thing.
And it's also brings back, of course, with the
The
loss,
loss.
it
Yeah.
brings back that loss pretty
Yep.
significantly, right?
Yep.
Um, but she didn't want Des to suffer or stress further. And she looked back at her decision she had to make with her husband, right? So now she's having to make decisions with her cat. And so she decided to euthanize him. And she had 2 other cats that had died, but this was the first time she had to euthanize.
Yeah.
So and this was interesting. This is what I talked about with you beforehand. I had told, when Molly died last May, we told Jack, he was the last pug. He said, "You can't die this year, right?" We had
Yeah.
talked about that.
Yeah. Just
And
like I told Abigail, you need
that's right.
to agree that you're going to live 2 more
Left.
years at least.
But what she said, it was nearly as difficult as losing my husband. And when Des started to decline, I begged him not to leave me yet, right? Because that was that connection. So she felt guilty. She knew she had made the right decision, but that didn't mean that she didn't feel guilty. Had I waited too long? Of course, those questions: did it too soon? Should I have done more, etc. And she wanted more time with him, and of course, we all want more time with our animals that die. But she was interesting, and she took all of that feeling. And she wanted a way to help herself start on a path towards peace, especially with the guilt over her decision. And then she got to us, right? She found our podcast. And she said, Des was extremely special to me, and I wanted to do the best thing for him. I will continue to process this for however long it takes, but I feel some peace now. When my husband was ill, I often had to make very tough decisions under duress. And as I listened to your podcasts, I remember those situations. So she has been able to collect, it sounds like, all of these grieving feelings, but channeling them into trying to create some peace and calm in her life and not to have so much guilt. And that's what we all wish for everyone, that they don't have all that guilt.
Yeah, it's like you think it through when you can in a less emotionally charged way. And that can be very helpful, that you are able to reflect on it and say, at each of the points where there was a decision to be made, I used my best judgment. I made the decision that I thought was right for, in this case, her cat. Previously, I'm sure she had all kinds of treatment decisions. It sounds like she was the point person for her husband's treatment. I would assume after he was no longer able to make those decisions for himself. And there comes at first, there's all kinds of emotional distress about that. Certainly when it's happening, you're not 100% sure you're doing the right
Right.
thing.
Of course, you're very anxious and nervous about making those decisions.
But in hindsight, if you're able to give a little bit of get a little bit of emotional distance from it, you can look at it with some perspective and realize that you did all the things that were the most reasonable given the circumstance. And it sounds like she's in that kind of a place where she can do. Now that comes and goes, right? I mean,
Yes.
that kind of
Can't
clarity of vision
Right.
comes and goes as we move through the grieving that we're experiencing. But it's
Although
good that she's able to put it down this way. She's able to
Right.
write it.
Which I thought she's a very thoughtful woman. You know, I
Yeah.
got that from the email. And she lost 3 cats now and her husband.
Yeah.
And so it appears that she's alone. And so she's taking this time to kind of reflect. And yes, I mean, I'm sure that she still has those difficult moments. Because this came in, I don't remember when it came in, but it came in a few weeks ago, I believe, maybe a month ago. So, but we want to thank Julie for
Yes.
her insight into her grieving for not just Des, but for her other cats and her husband.
Yeah.
And all, not in not close together, but kind of in a row.
We heard from a listener who said that she and her family make a habit of adopting
Mm-hmm.
elderly pets from who are in shelter. And we may hear from her actually. She may come and talk with us on this program. But I find that very, very interesting. And I often wonder when I see that an elderly pet is needing to be adopted. I wonder how that goes. And it seems like there are certain people who have a special
Special gift.
openness in their
Yeah.
hearts for elderly pets.
Do you know about Monkey's House in New Jersey?
Mm-mm.
Monkey's
No.
House. Um, a Monkey's House, and it's down central Jersey towards the shore, I believe.
Hmm.
And I think CNN did something on this on Monkey's House some time ago. It was a couple that had, I think it was a little Chihuahua, if I'm not mistaken, whose name it was Monkey. And when Monkey died, they decided that they wanted to offer hospice to dying animals, to dying
Mm-hmm.
dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wow.
so they did. And CNN went in and they had all the little mattresses on the floors, and they had volunteers come in, and they had a veterinarian that would come and look at all the animals and take care of them and treat them. And I think that that's just similar. I mean, all of them were going to die,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
this couple in their heart decided that this is what they wanted to do.
That's really beautiful. That's really
Yeah.
beautiful. It is. I was thinking we might talk some about the special qualities of having an elderly pet,
Yes.
because it is special. It's a gentle time
It is a
in
gentle time.
our lives, I think, and
Mhm.
it's very interesting. My husband Tim, our puppy is 8 months old and full full of energy
Of course,
and
very
jumps on
different
us.
than
We're
Abigail and
trying,
Isabel were.
yeah, we're trying to teach her to, and she's making great progress. She's a very sweet little dog, but she still jumps up on us. And my husband Tim said, "I can't wait until you're a little more calmed down."
And then it's gonna be what, 4 years old?
Yeah,
4 or
maybe,
5 years old?
she's a terrier, so I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's
I
true.
don't know how much hope I hold out for her to calm down a lot. But 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 I think of my 2 recently lost Chihuahuas who, I mean, they were similarly bundles of energy. I mean, they were 5.5 pounds, so they didn't have as much impact. But for most of their lives, they were incredibly active and bouncing all around and, just wonderful spirited little animals. But in their final years, they were much more quiet, right? And you have a different relationship
You
with
have a
your
different
elderly
relationship with
pet. You have a much
I do.
more just kind of thoughtful, quiet. You are in a place of calm giving, I think,
Yes,
with your
calm
elderly pet. And
because having, I've got Jack who's almost 16 and Ellie who's 10 or 11, and Boogie who's 3. Now, and Mookie, who is my grand dog, is only 1. So it's so different
Mhm,
having a 3-year-old with a 10 and a almost 16-year-old.
mhm,
And,
mhm.
so, and you're right, it's softer with the older.
Yeah. Well,
And
you were just mentioning a few minutes ago
yeah,
that you pick up Jack and he's frail and
he's frail. He's just a
you put
little
him
bot.
down and you have to put him down really carefully because
Yeah.
he's not always ready
He's
to
always
support
standing
himself.
upright, he could fall, and
Yeah.
he's got one whole eye that's a cataract, and
Mhm,
I love him, and he's so easy in some ways. I
mhm,
mean,
mhm,
puppies are hard. I mean,
yes, they are.
but Although the elderly can be hard in their
Yeah,
illness, if they have an
yeah,
illness and the vet and the treatments and all that, but they're sweet and they just wanna be with you and they sleep a lot and they just cuddle,
mhm,
it's a whole different thing, with Boogie, I've gotta spend at least half an hour at morning and night playing with him, right?
right,
'Cause
right.
he's got tons of energy.
Uh,
In fact, I took him on a 6,000 step walk the other day, came in and he did zoomies around the house. So it's a whole different thing, but you're
so
right.
but it is, it's a time, the way I look at it, there's a richness to it that even though there may be a lot of work in caring for them
Yeah,
because, as we've heard and we've experienced, sometimes they become incontinent, sometimes they
mhm,
need all kinds of medications that are given in a variety of ways. Sometimes they're given orally, sometimes they're given by injection, sometimes they're given by suppository. I mean, there's all
yeah,
kinds of ways that you need to often care for them. But in all that, there's also, when you're caring for them, there's a kind of closeness.
yeah.
Now, I
That you
remember
get,
Isabel, I had to give Isabel 5 different medications
yeah,
morning and evening, and 2 of them were given by syringe into her mouth so that we'd make sure she swallowed them, and then others were given kinda crushed into her food, but I remember it was always an opportunity to pick her up and talk to her and give her a
yeah, kiss her.
snuggle and, kiss her and let her know that I loved her, that I love her, and, there's something very beautiful about
Yeah,
that kind of intimacy too,
that's right.
that so every life stage
It's
has
gifts.
its beautiful
Mhm.
elements,
Yeah,
and
those are gifts.
it's just something, that, and I always think too, and this person who we heard from said that she has young children, I believe. Person who said that they adopt older pets, and it's very interesting to me to have, it's something to have an older pet with children because it teaches them in
How
a very direct way about where what happens in our life cycles.
Right, and
That
also they have to react to that elderly
Yeah,
pet differently than a puppy or a younger
yeah,
dog,
yeah.
right?
They have to
Because
be very careful and
careful and
gentle,
gentle and right, right.
and they learn about the fact that we eventually decline
Yeah.
and that we're all gonna die, and that they're they're able to be part of that in a way that can be really, it
It's
can be
it
a great learning experience.
exactly.
It can be something that teaches them about that aspect of living in a way that is not gonna be terrifying or distant, so all of this, it always comes back to, for me, how vitally important and useful and significant it is to have pets in our life, no matter where they are
Oh,
in the life
yeah.
cycle.
Well, I look at it every day right, the whole life cycle. I look at it every day as, all the stuff that's in my head for different things that are going on in my life and people around me. And then Jack's just laying there on the couch and he's just happy and he's gonna go take a nap, right?
Uh,
So I mean, they're all in the moment.
yep,
That's what they all in the moment.
yeah,
And I'm like,
comfortable, not
uh-huh,
worried about
right.
anything.
Mhm. And I'm
You're
like,
taking it as it comes.
we're thinking about the war now and or
Yeah,
the invasion in Ukraine, and I'm looking at the dogs and I'm like, hmm. They
he's
just
thinking about dinner.
but that's helpful for us
Yeah,
because then we have to slow up, right?
yeah,
We have to just be with them,
yeah.
right?
And when you do give them, so Hildy, my puppy, has an ear that has yeast and bacteria in it. And so the other ear is fairly clean, but we're treating that one too. And I have to hold her and stick my finger here with a Kleenex and dig this skunk out. And it's really poignant how trusting she is about that.
That's right.
Just
They
so
trust
trusting.
us
She's like just
unconditionally.
being pretty quiet about it, and then I have to squirt this thing in her ear, and mash her ear around, and it's very moving that there's so much trust there, and
Yeah.
it's such
Well,
a
it's
simple
almost
kind of love.
it's simple, but it's also for us scary in some ways. We are responsible
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
we can pick them up. We carry them around. I mean,
Mhm.
mostly sometimes you can't pick them up, but they're big. But, you know, they depend on us to feed them. They depend on us to get their exercise. They depend, and it's almost like you could start to think, wow, you know, these lives are in my hand.
And they 100% are,
Yeah,
100%. And such a gift that is,
it's such a gift.
and so here you have, when we're talking about Julie's situation here, she's dealing with everything as it comes up, and it
Yeah,
was complicated, and it was further complicated by COVID, by
yeah.
the
Where she lived,
minimal
maybe.
availability, yeah,
Yeah,
how there wasn't a lot of accessibility for her vet, and then she has to deal with with, uh the getting to the emergency vet. And I was in that situation as well, where it's like, do you want to go to the emergency vet and do the oxygen tent, and we're not sure if that's going to really keep them going for any length of time, and they're going to be all alone in an oxygen tent because COVID is happening, you can't even go see
yeah,
them, and it's so complicated. And she made the decision that she knew was bad. And boy, it sounds like it was the right decision. I mean, it sounds
yes.
like it was very, very complicated. And you're right. It's all about this level of responsibility
Uh,
we take.
and
And
that's when the guilt comes in, right? Because we're always wondering if we did the right thing.
yeah,
Even if
yeah,
we know we did the right thing, we
yeah,
still think about maybe it wasn't the right thing.
right, right. And did for her, she went to the vet. The vet said go to the emergency vet, and she went to the emergency vet. For us, most recently with our Abigail, we went to our vet. They said maybe go to the emergency vet, but first let me talk to them and ask, do they have a tent? Do they have an oxygen tent available? Yes, they do, but they want us to pump her full of Lasix. And then they gave her the Lasix, and then as we're walking out the door, she's dying.
Yeah.
And so we brought her back in. I mean, it's these situations can be
They're very
so complicated,
complicated.
and
Absolutely.
it's
And then
very hard.
you're all, you know, emotionally distraught, right?
Yeah,
Because at
yeah,
that time you were so not yourself in a way that is clear or, you know, or strategic. You're just you're trying to make a decision, and you're not sure you're making the right decision.
yeah,
Although
and
although
you're never 100%.
no, no.
I mean, that's one of the things about this. That's because we just want things to be different, right? We want things
We
to be different.
want them to be healthy and come home.
Yeah, yeah. It's very nice to see we have a comment from Renee, who's saying, "Hi, nice to catch you live. I'm on chapter 22 of your podcast. It's helped me so greatly." Nice to have you with us, Renee, as well. I'm
Yes, thank
glad
you,
you're
Renee.
here with us. And it's so nice to know that this is helpful for people, and we are very appreciative of your comments, because it's uh
Well, this is our
it's
this
hard
is
stuff
our
that we're talking about, and we know that it's hard for you as well.
we're it's our labor of love, man. This is what we love to do. We love to help people through their grief, you know, of a very, very important relationship. It's the relationship you grieve.
Yep, yep.
And a lot of people don't get that. People that don't have animals, they just don't get that. And so
Who
that's
are those people, Nancy? I want to know now.
yeah, they're a third of the population, but but that's why, you know, it's important. We felt it was important to do this podcast, right? Write the book
Yep,
and do the podcast.
yep.
Um, so, you know, but to, I guess we almost have
We need
to,
to wrap up. Yeah,
but you know, we love all of our animals at all stages of their life.
yep.
And it's like a child, right? The child, you know, is born and they're newborn, and then they're toddlers, and then they're
Hmm.
latency age, and then they're adolescents, and then all of a sudden they're gone.
Yeah,
They're adults, right? And you have
they're
to,
adults, and we
wow.
everything. Now that never happens with a with a pet.
No, no,
Never.
they're always with us, right?
Yeah, they're
But
always
it's the
with us.
same thing that you have the challenges in
Yeah,
some ways
developmental challenges.
yeah,
Yeah,
in
yeah.
each stage. Yeah,
So always great talking with you. We will be back
too.
2 weeks from now.
Right.
Nancy's going to help me in my post surgery
That's right.
recovery.
It's going to be, I need to do that.
Yeah,
You're going
it's
to need
time
it.
I got that hernia fixed. It's really time.
Take care,
Um,
everyone.
Take care, everybody. We'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.